There's a massive opportunity right now for companies to adopt AI and actually get real return on it. But it's hard to see that when all of the noise, the news, and the headlines come from the tech world. It feels like everything is moving so fast that if you're not already deep into AI, you've somehow missed the boat. The reality is, tech is only a small part of the overall economy. It's about 4 to 5% of the US workforce. But because that's where the loudest conversations happen, it creates this illusion that we're a lot bigger. When you look at the overall bigger picture, it's actually the opposite. Healthcare is about 13% of the workforce, government is 12%, retail, hospitality, construction, manufacturing, all of these industries are 2 or 3 times bigger than technology. And most of them are barely using AI at all. So even though AI is moving quickly, it doesn't mean you need to overhaul your entire business to keep up. You don't need a massive budget and you don't need to build some huge internal AI program. In this video, I'm going to show you what the gap looks like and how you can take advantage of it without needing to do anything extreme. I'm Joe, and as with everything on the channel, this is all around the business side of AI. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we kind of get into this, it's worth noting when I talk about the labour workforce, I'm not necessarily talking about like the GDP at which that sector contributes to the economy of the US. What I'm kind of talking about is the number of people in that industry. And it's important that I recognise this because, like I say, I think if you work in technology, you're very much in a bubble, in an echo chamber, and it feels like you don't really understand that there's a whole world outside of technology and there's businesses that are so far behind compared to that of the technology sector themselves. So this is just kind of my way of thinking about it, and maybe it can help you kind of think about it, and actually you don't need to do a lot to actually be quite far ahead. So first of all, I guess like the way I kind of look at this is almost on a bit of a scale. So like I consider a scale over here as like, okay, this is, junior, this is kind of entry level, right? This is an entry level person, and this line here represents, I guess, knowledge. So this whole line here represents knowledge. And so this is your entry level person, and let's say, this will continue to expand, this way, but ultimately, let's just kind of call this, your top grade AI, ML engineers right over here, right? These are the most extremely technical people, okay? These are like the top 0.1% in this space. And again, not everyone is going to know everything, and this will continue, the scale continues to move forward. Now, I see this, and I see myself on this kind of scale of skills almost. And where do I put myself? Well, I would say I'm somewhere between, if we have it as a percentage, I'm probably somewhere right around maybe here. Okay, I'm definitely not like an expert in any way. I'm learning all the time. I don't know everything, but I know enough. And so the way I look at this is that if I know even, let's call this 15%, of the AI economy, technology, even if I know 15%, that is 100% more than anybody that's sat here. And this is so this is kind of the technology market. This is everyone in tech that knows everything about AI, and anyone that's in tech in general. This is technology. This is the technology sector. And before you get to this technology sector, there is everybody else that has no idea about technology. So even if I know 15% of something within this space, that is 100% more than most people. And that's the way I kind of look at it. Now, what's really interesting, and I mentioned kind of some statistics, and this was very much through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a US government entity which gives you all the details and the numbers around this kind of stuff. And actually, again, we look at kind of the industries that are out there and their percentage of workforce. And the way, again, I try and think about this is you've got a large circle here, and this represents the top share of total employment, and this is private healthcare. I'm just going to call this healthcare just for now, so it fits in. And then you've got the next one, which is state and local government. So I kind of draw a slightly smaller circle, and this is state/local local gov. Okay, cool. So we've got two industries there, and then the retail trade. So that then slightly smaller circle, and this is retail. And then we have accommodation and food services. So again, slightly smaller. Let's just go accommodation and food services. Then we go slightly smaller. And this one is manufacturing. So manufacturing. And then, only then, do we come on to a slightly smaller circle. And right here is our tech. Now, actually, it's important to note that tech in the Bureau of Labour Statistics falls under professional, scientific and technical services. So there are some other nuances within that, but this is the data we've got to go on. And this represents, as a whole, as the professional services, scientific and technical services is around 6.4%. So we have a 6.4% marker there. And this is around about 7 to 8 million people from what I understand from my research. So we've got 7 to 8 million people. Now, if you compare that with the healthcare sector, that's 13.3%. Okay, so we're looking at near enough double the size from a workforce perspective. Okay, not necessarily from like a GDP or a revenue perspective or a market cap perspective. We are just looking at a workforce perspective, and this whole conversation is around kind of your knowledge and and people, okay, and people's skills, right? So this is important to note because I definitely feel like in technology, again, we're in a bubble and we're talking about, we're talking with peers and people I follow and people I look up to and mentors and things, and we just kind of talk about the same things, and so therefore you're in this bubble. But as soon as you go outside of that bubble into these other sectors, which are absolutely ginormous, AI and technology is just a completely almost like redundant. It's not a topic of conversation within a lot of these sectors, and because that's just people who just don't understand it, right? And so the way I look at AI, I kind of look at the AI sector. Lots of people see it as a bubble, kind of going almost outwards and expanding. I kind of like to think of it as the opposite way, which is that you have a circle here. So this is the circle here, and then what you have right in the middle is this bit, again, is your 0.1%. Okay, so this is your 0.1% in the middle, and this is where the most amazing technical people work. This is your Microsoft, your Facebook, your OpenAI, your Oracle. This is where those top 7-figure earners are working, and the knowledge they have is unbelievable around that space. Again, it's such a small percentage of people that have that. And what you actually have, and what I feel like we have, is companies on the edge of this circle. And companies kind of on the edge of this circle are all trying to, some of them not in any case trying to do this, but most of them are trying to work their way inwards to understand technology and AI as best they possibly can. So like what I think about and when I have these conversations with clients and people is that, using things like ChatGPT and just a large language model to, you give a question, it gives you an answer back, is just it's almost on the surface of this circle. It's just right on the outer edge of like what AI and automation can really do. And the further you go towards that center, the more knowledge, if you imagine this whole circle here is just knowledge and technology. And as you go further and further towards that center, you consume more knowledge, you understand more, you implement more technology and automation and AI into your business. And so another way to kind of look at this is that surface level piece. Most companies sit above the surface, right? Most companies are somewhat they're here, and this is the majority, right? This is like what 99% of companies sit above here and not really thinking about AI and technology and how that's going to move their business forward. Unfortunately, that's going to not necessarily leave them behind, but it will in some respect, right? Because if their competitors start to adopt that technology and AI quicker than they will move forward, and they will move quicker, and they will move ahead a lot faster. So this is kind of your surface level, and then you've got everything kind of down here beneath that actually AI and automation can do, right? And again, this is even little things like AI agents, large language models, and API calls, and voice agents and all of this stuff that we talk about. And this is even automation sits within this, right? But most people, what they see on the surface level is ChatGPT, right? And this is what they go to, and this is what they see. So this is kind of how I visualize it, and this is how I think about AI at the moment in the opportunity that's there. Because, and if you work in technology, again, you're in this bubble, right? That's kind of containing you. But if you're outside of that, the opportunity is absolutely massive, because you don't need to spend a lot of money to see some return, right? Whether that be a revenue return, saving money, cutting costs, efficiency, growth, reducing risk, whatever it might be that you're looking at. You don't have to do a lot to get a decent amount back and to be ahead of most people. So even if you're on 0% right now, you're on a 0% knowledge. Even if you spent a little bit of money, we're not talking millions, right? We're talking a little bit of money to run an AI co-pilot program, right? Even if you spent a little bit of money and you got to 1%, and this might cost you, I don't know, I'm just going to put a random number on it. Let's say it costs you $5,000 to do something, right? And it gets you to 1%. Again, you will likely be that knowledge you get 1% is likely going to be 100% more than most other businesses. So you almost have to imagine it as two different scales, and AI and technology is one scale. And then there's that's the scale of knowledge that you start to acquire. But pre that, there is no knowledge. And most people sit in no knowledge at all. So even if you get a small amount, it's still going to be a significant amount to you, and comparing that to the wider workforce and the wider economy. So like for any business that is really has money to spend or is thinking about AI and automation, my one piece of advice is do not spend a lot of money, because you don't need to. Spending hundreds of millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars on AI transformation programs right now, if you've never done it before, potentially is going to be a waste of money for you, and you actually don't need to spend that much to typically get ahead of your competition, which is probably what you're trying to do, right? Every business kind of wants to be the best in their space, and therefore it needs to adopt some form of technology to do that, or innovation to do that. So yeah, look, this is kind of what I wanted to chat about today. It's just kind of my thought processes I had around this idea that we're in this huge bubble. People like me that do this for a day job are in this massive bubble, and I worry myself that I'm not catching up to other people ahead of me, right? And there will always be someone more technical than me. But I have to remember that, from a labor workforce perspective, technology professionals make up such a small percentage of the entire workforce, right? And this doesn't even account, we're sixth in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Technology falls under number 6. Then you've got other sectors as well that go beyond that, right? So there's like the construction, transportation, there's finance, there's wholesale, there's trading, there's all of these other things, right? That then those even they make up a smaller percentage of the workforce, but then you start to combine them, and then you see that we have AI and automation over here, which makes up a tiny percentage of knowledge base that people understand of AI and automation and technology. And there is a huge percentage of businesses that just do not understand that, right? And they don't have that knowledge base because they're not in that industry, and they're moving a lot slower. So yeah, let me know what you think. This is just kind of my way of thinking about things. I definitely see it as more of a scale than anything. And again, as time goes on, technology will continually outpace people. Like most people, it will just always outpace people. And if you're not catching up in some way, so even if you're not going from this kind of 0 to 1%, the longer you leave it from going from 0 to 1, the longer you leave that, the harder that transition is going to be. So if you then leave it another year from taking that first step from going to like 0 to 1, in a few years' time, you're potentially not going to have a business that exists. Your competitors are going to overtake you. You're going to miss out on innovation and opportunity. And eventually you will just get kind of left behind, right? And that's not to scare you. Like I said, I think there's still time to do it. There definitely is time. And it doesn't take long necessarily to do either. There is one other point actually I want to mention, which is the biggest threat I see, and I've spoken about this in another video, from an AI perspective. The biggest threat is just the adoption. It's just user adoption. How can you get all of these other industries? And if you look at some of those higher ranking, the labour workforce in like private healthcare and state and local governments and the retail trade, they make up a huge portion of the labour workforce. How on earth can you get that many people to start to adopt new technology and new ways of working? So I think the biggest risk right now from an AI perspective is actually just user adoption, and it's getting people to do something different and change their way of working. And especially if you're an older business or even of an older generation, if you think that your way of doing it is the right way and you're unwilling to change, that's a huge risk as well, because you will find that a younger, hungrier business will come along, they'll use innovation, they'll use AI, and they will jump straight ahead of you. So yeah, look, just want to kind of share my thoughts on that. Yeah, hopefully this helps, and let me know what you think in the comments, and how you kind of think about AI and automation and technology as a whole. And I'll see you in the next video.